Hi, welcome back to the Real Estate Huddle. We are on episode 39.
39.
Holy smokes. We're going to do a market update and just give you guys a little update on what's going on in the real estate news here in Denver and Denver metro area. And so I think the biggest story of this last year is inventory is up 68% in our market. We're one of the nation leaders in inventory climbing, which is actually a really healthy thing. So economists say 12,000 units available at one time is balanced in our market. And right now we have 10,214 as of the end of last month. And so, that's up quite a bit from 6,070 last year, the same time at the end of June. So it's definitely created more opportunities for buyers to get into homes because they're not competing with so many people for a place. And it's also made it so sellers have to be a little more honest, right? And not be, not gouging buyers, right? But they have to, it's a little more honest in the negotiations, right? You're having to do some things on inspection to save a deal.
Yeah, and it's not an auction where you get multiple offers on an opening weekend, right? So, because at one point in time, we were down to 1,200 units for sale. And if you got 12,000 is balanced, you can only imagine you've got almost 10 buyers for every listing. So that gets to be kind of chaotic, and that drives prices up. So that supply and demand curve is really important. So, and keep in mind when we say the Denver market area, we're talking about just the 7-county metro area that make up the Denver area. So, and that's Adams County, Arapahoe County, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas County, Elbert, and Jefferson.
Yep. Absolutely. And homes in this last year, 12-month period, are only up value-wise. They're up 1.19%. So we've appreciated slightly, steady growth, and that's what we predicted at the end of the year. It would be somewhere between 2 and 5%. I think once the year shakes out, we'll definitely be in that window. And so average home, and this is the entire market, right? Detached and attached. The average home price in the Denver metro area is $723,497. So we're, almost at that $750,000 mark for our average price in our market. And so affordability is also an issue, right? And that's why we haven't had runaway growth, because the demand is there, but people are still living in the payment, which is a challenge at times. So at the same time, though, it's good to understand that rents have actually gone up 30% since 2020.
Yeah, so nationwide, 30% increase. So you got 22 million renters who their rent is 30% of their take-home pay or of their income, and 12 million renters say 50% of their income goes to rent. So you can see a 30% increase when that's half your income is going to be significant. So there's a really big advantage to getting into a home and being able to control that outgoing payment to be able to lock that in. So that's one thing that you do fix when you do purchase a home, is you fix that outgoing payment, so you're not subject to the market woes. So,
no question. And, amongst all this, with inventory rising, 68%, we've only had days on market go up 4 days. So it's been from 23 days on market last year on average in the entire market to 27 right now. So that's a very small number as far as, that goes. We're talking days in MLS going up 17%, right? But only 4 days, still in the high 20s. That's a really solid market for selling. So it still remains to be a good time to sell. Homes are selling. They just have to be priced a little bit more aggressively, and they've got to be updated a little bit more for buyers to pick them up. Because otherwise they have options, right? They can go down the street and find something else that they don't have to pour a bunch of money into.
Yeah, so on the sell side, you got to really put your best foot forward, really negotiate hard with that. So that's where it's important to having a person and a good team representing you on that side. Yeah. It's kind of a struggle when you run into, when it was 1,200 homes on the market, it was kind of an auctioning block, and people were just literally standing outside with a microphone and who's going to bid what before you even saw the home. Yeah. It was kind of extreme a little bit. So now it's getting into where the effort is going to pay dividends.
Prepping the home properly is critical. Yeah.
Yep.
And getting top dollar for sure.
So.
Yeah. And for what that, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to add on to your inventory increase is 68% here, where the national average is 36.7% increase from 1 year ago. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing that kind of all the way across the board, but Denver area is a lot higher. So, which is good, because it gives buyers a lot more options, and it gives you a lot more time to sit on a choice and actually think about it. So, and it's easier to, just go to next, right? The next home down the street, because there's more than one for sale. So,
right. And numbers are really great. And for somebody who's just thinking like, what does that mean for me right now? Like you guys were saying, we've before seen 10 buyers per home being sold. Now we're close to 1. So you're not going to be competing. You're going to have more leverage as a buyer, which is really nice. And then the other thing, like you were saying, with more options on the market, some of the more outdated, cosmetically not as pretty homes are sitting on the market. If you're looking for like a sweat equity opportunity where you want to buy a home and renovate it and work on it while you're living there and increase your home value that way, I think now is a really great time for that kind of purchase. Or if you're trying to buy a rental and you want to renovate it and update it either over the long term or before you rent it, I think now is kind of a good market for the people who are in that sort of buying situation.
Yeah, definitely. No question. So the other interesting thing too is like homes are still selling at 99.56% of the current list price. So there are, and I think there is a good amount of chunk taken off of homes that are cosmetically dated, right? We're seeing a lot more price reductions and also like give on pricing for those. And it's creating a great flip opportunity, right? For renovators and people that want to come in and turn houses around, like you said. So I think there's opportunity there, but also with that 99.56% holding strong, that tells you something about demand. And it also tells you something about, there's a lot of homes that are listening to agents' advice, prepping their home properly and getting it sold for top dollar, because that's what buyers want nowadays. They really want a turnkey house, and they don't have a whole lot of cash on the side to just go in and do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And the other thing with interest rates dropping, they have dropped 4 times in the last week. So you've got a lot of buyers that have been sitting kind of on the fence waiting for that. Coming into that market now is going to be a great time to be able to buy, and you're going to have some negotiations and some leverage there. So, whether it's a rate buy down, whether it's a lease break fee, different concessions and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options, and that's where being privy to what the market is doing and what you're seeing out in the market will really help you in the negotiations. So being represented really well from that aspect is going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to piggyback on that, a lot of people, they say, okay, well, prices are better now. I can negotiate better, but these rates are so high. Let's make that somebody else's problem. Let's make that the seller's, let's make that the seller's problem, and we can negotiate for you a buy down so you're never actually dealing with those higher interest rates. So I know a lot of people, especially in my age, think about it as like, oh, I want to time the market. Like, oh, I'll just wait a couple more years and I'll, go then when interest rates are lower. But I think really it's more about strategizing for the market that you're in. If you need to buy or you want to buy or you're ready to buy, then you can take advantage of whatever the market is if you have a good realtor, and they're going to be able to strategize for you so that you're still getting the best deal. It's not necessarily timing as much as it's being strategic and being intelligent about how you're making those moves. Totally.
Absolutely. So give us a call. We are good realtors here. But also the average price, you guys, what would you say to someone, first off, I'll just pose a question. What would you say to someone who says, there is no way my home that is the average price, $723,000, is going to be $1 million home? Like, that's impossible. What would you say to that?
I would say 10 years ago, it was a $500,000 home.
California.
If not less, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
It was even less. So in 7 years, I doubled my money on my first Colorado home.
Yeah.
So
in 7 years, it
7 years.
doubled. Holy cow.
So, and I did some sweat equity updates along the way, but if you take care of the asset and it shows really well, it can happen really well. So
I think there might be some people that are short-sighted, right? That just don't see the possibility of what supply and demand can do to real estate values.
How many times in a listing appointment have you ever had somebody where you show them the current value of their home? They say, I wish I would have bought 2 at that price back in the day.
Absolutely. All the time.
Everybody who's been in their home for 20, 25 years, that is the number one comment is like, oh, I should have bought 2.
When people ask us, when is the best time to buy a house? The funny answer is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Just like when it's the best time to plant a fruit tree, right? Is 10 years ago, right?
Exactly.
So,
or right now, right? Because it's like, the short-sightedness doesn't allow a lot of times we just lack the belief that homes are going to continue to grow, right? And what we don't understand is homes have only gone down, right, during the Great Depression and the Great Recession. Other than that, every other recession we've had has been a growth period. It's been minor, but it's been like 1% to 2% growth right now. Like we're in a little recession right now and we're still up 1.91%. In 2019 and 18, we had a little mini recession. We still grew 2 to 3% per year. So that's typically what happens in downtimes in real estate. That's how powerful demand is. And the population size of buyers is huge. Like millennials and Gen Zs are very, very big populations that are, bigger than the baby boomers. So when you think about that, we've got a large population of buyers trying to buy. They can't build homes fast enough. We've met demand 1 year in the last 15 years as far as how many homes are needed in the country to build. So supply is that's not getting fixed, and demand is continuing to remain strong. So I think that, we're in a time where now is better than any time is going to be in the future.
Mm-hmm. See, and that's the advantage is I look at home ownership as kind of like riding a roller coaster. And yes, things are going to ebb and flow. You may have low inventory times where you're going to see this massive appreciation. Sometimes you'll see a recession and it'll be more flatlined. But the only people that really complain about the roller coaster is the folks that aren't on it. So totally. If you're on the roller coaster and riding that wave, you're going generally trending in that right direction. So I always look at it as, so the average person stays in a home for 7 years. So if you look at the aperture of the graph of the growth of your home over 7 years, you're going to see that line going up. But you may zoom in really, really closely, just kind of like in the stock market, right? You can zoom in really close, and Tuesday it went down, but Thursday it went back up. And if you're worried about it in that sense, then we need to just zoom out a little bit and take just a different, wider look at that. So 5 to 10 years, with the average person being 7 years in a home, seeing that appreciation, and there's a lot of tax advantages and whatever else. So getting into a home and buying in a non-multiple offer situation is way less stressful, especially for your first-time home buyers. So 30% of the transactions last year were first-time home buyers. You've got 76 million Gen Zers that are kind of in that first-time home buyer market right now. So, and like 45% of them are in that family starting area where they're probably got like one kid, they've had the dog, now they've got the kid, and they're ready to, start the home and, kind of plant some roots down. So
the dog's not dead. It's time for kids. We did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and let's just trust the stats. I mean, look at the numbers and you can predict based on the history in the past, most likely what's going to happen in the future, right? And if you bought a home in 2020, your home is now worth 41.43% more on average than it was in 2020. That's just 4 years ago, right? So that's crazy. If you bought a home in 2021, your home is worth 16.8% more than it was 3 years ago. If you bought a home in 2022, your home is worth 1.51% more than it was 2 years ago. And if you bought a home last year, your home is worth 3.86% more than it was at the start of last year, right? So in the last year and a half, we're up 3.86%. So marginal growth these last 2 years, right? Usually when there's marginal growth, usually there's some more serious gains to be had down the road, right? That's our average appreciation in the country is 5% per year. Mm-hmm. So if Denver is doing 1%, 2%, 3% type stuff, that's probably going to be followed by 8%, 10%, 12% stuff down the road, right? It may be when interest rates correct and start to act like a market again, right? Not be dictated by inflation so much and spending. But I think that is coming, and I think that smart people are buying now and getting into the market so they can ride that wave.
Ride that appreciation.
Yeah.
And like you said, with the average home price being over $700,000, I think a lot of people see that and they say, oh, well, I'm never going to have $700,000, whatever. Yeah. But especially like you were saying, the best time is 10 years ago, second best time is now. Mm-hmm. If $700,000 seems awful right now, if you wait a couple of years down the line, your average home, let's say, is $1 million. Yeah. If you buy right now, maybe you don't get that $700,000 home, but you get a little starter condo that you have. It appreciates over the 7 years that you're living in it. And so now you have a nice nest egg of a couple $100,000, and it looks a lot more feasible to buy that average home when you're looking to expand. If you never do that, then it is kind of unfeasible, because if you get to a point where you really need a bigger house and a lot more space, but you've been renting your whole life and never invested in real estate, it's really hard to make that big jump.
Yeah,
that big transition. So
absolutely.
And you can get into homes with rate buy downs and different programs like that. I've had a condo that closed with a 1% down. You got a 2% grant.
Yeah.
It appraised for more than the purchase price, and you got a rate buy down. So first time home buyer being able to move into that, and he walked in with $20,000-$30,000 worth of equity, and that's unheard of. But getting into the market and then buying within the same market isn't a big deal. Now, if you relocate someplace else, you're going to have to deal with that. So I know folks from California, when they relocate to Colorado, right, the sale price there versus the purchase price here is significantly different. But within that same market, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Yeah. And I mean, if you, like you said, if you go the condo townhome route, because the price point's better, bought a condo 4 years ago, it's worth 26.57% more today. You bought a condo or townhome 3 years ago, it's worth 10.55% today. You bought a condo 2 years ago, it's worth 3.26% less, right? They've gotten hit a little bit because of all these hailstorms and the insurance issues. But that just means to me that you're buying it at a discount, right? Yeah. It's on sale. Right, so you get a bit of a deal because there is going to be growth going forward. That's my thought process.
And sitting on the fence right now about buying. So as you say, we date the interest rate and marry the home, right? So you've got a market right now where we've got a lot of inventory. So I mean, this is some of the highest inventory I've seen since past 2008 time frame. So you're looking at a 15-year high, if you will. So you've got all of these buyers that are sitting on the fence, and you could be the only offer on a home right now. You've got a lot of negotiating power. Now you wait till the market starts going a little bit crazier in the normal swirl in the February, March timeframe. You might not be the only person competing. I know when I was doing a home transaction recently, my personal home, and we were getting outbid by over $100,000 on the purchase price. And that's a significant difference. Even at a low interest rate, that $100,000 is a big deal. Well, how about getting the home at a higher interest rate and being able to refinance later? So you're just going to be competing with a mass amount of people during the busy season, if you will, for buying. So it's much easier to get in now and move before winter hits. So
rude to go back to Warren Buffett, but when everybody's scared and not buying is when you should be buying. So there's people who are scared off now by the higher interest rates. So now's the time to get a good deal. Totally. When everybody thinks it's time to buy, that's when you're not really getting a good deal, because you're competing with 10 other people. And if you say, hey, I'd like you to fix the sewer line before closing, they're going to say, hey, I'd like to go with the 9 other offers that aren't asking me to do that. So
other buyers are willing to take on that risk. So, and you make your best deal on real estate at the purchase, right? So that's where having a little bit more leverage in the negotiations is going to bring you a lot better success. So, because saving a couple $1,000s on the purchase price is going to be a whole lot easier than refinancing later. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of lenders that are doing a no-cost refi right now. So they're putting that out there and they're opening that door. So you have very little risk.
Yeah. And for our listeners, you mentioned 2008. 2007 was when I got into the business. There were 24,000 units on the market, right? Homes for sale. And we got all the way down in 2020, 2021. We got down to 1,200, you mentioned, units on the whole market in 7 counties. And now we're just over 10,000. So that's, just to put it into perspective, 12,000 is balanced. We've seen double balanced. We've seen 1/15 of balanced. And so now, like Jackson said earlier, 1-to-1 is a really good ratio, and we're almost there. So it's a good time to buy or sell with days on market still being in the high 20s. You guys, it's a special time in the market. I've never seen balanced in my career. In 17 years, I've never seen a balanced market. I've always wanted to see one. I've heard about them. My dad's been in the business for almost 40 years. He's told me about them, but I've never seen them. So this is pretty awesome, and we're looking forward to volume increasing as buyers start to have more needs. Interest rates come down. I think we're going to see a lot more people people moving in the fall and spring of next year. So,
and another number that just doesn't seem relevant to us, seeing what's going on, foreclosures are still very, very low. I know a lot of people, especially my age, are like, oh, that's great, but it's a bubble, it's going to pop. And so when I buy that home, it's going to be worth pennies when the real estate bubble pops. But as far as like the actual data that we have to look at to predict if that's going to be an issue, there's not really any numbers right now that say, hey, we're coming up across this event horizon where there's going to be a big bubble. I think the data is also good in terms of we have a balanced market and it's growing in a healthy way.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
And when I bought my first home, I was not educated on the supply and demand curve, and I made a decision to buy in 2005, and then come 2009, I had to relocate. So I had to pay the price to sell after the bubble. And so I kind of made it my own personal mission to just kind of make sure that that's not going to happen based on all of the data and the stats. And with us having over 10,000 homes on the market, I'm surprised that our days on market hasn't increased significantly.
Me too.
But there is still significant demand out there.
It's gone down. I mean, we were at 44 days on market just a year and a half ago. So it has gone down significantly. And that just shows you how strong that demand is. The Gen Zs are starting to buy now. Millennials are in the thick of it, right? Like most millennials have that dream of home ownership and they want to get into that. And they've been trying to scratch and claw and find a way to make it happen. So it's definitely at the top of a lot of people's lists, especially when the alternative has gone up 30% in the last 4 years. People want to get into a house that they can own and do what they want to it and watch it grow.
It's your best rent control.
Yeah, and if you're looking at a snapshot of the last year, the lowest price point that we've seen average price was in January. So November through January, that is typically the lowest pricing gets during the year. And then your highest pricing, when pricing is at its all-time high, is April. So if you're thinking about when to buy your first home, if you already own a home, it probably doesn't matter when you move, to be honest, because you're going to get benefit in one and then dip in the other. But if you're buying your first home or buying another home, a second home, then man, look at the fall. Look at the fall is a great time to do that. It's such a good time of year to buy. I've moved. My last 2 moves have been in November, and we've had a great experience moving that time of year.
Yep.
So we're more than willing to help that time of year, and would love to answer any questions that you may have. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, and hope you enjoyed this market update today. And if you have any more questions about the real estate market, please reach out to the Dreamsmith team, and we can definitely help you either here on YouTube with a comment, a direct message, or you can also just give us a call. All the information is down below. Thanks so much for listening.